Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with Tearlaments, and more specifically, this is going to be the Tearlaments deck list that got #1 in the latest season of Rating Duels, season 36. I almost said Duels Cup, I had to think about it for a second, but I have been playing decks from the Duels Cup as well, so... particularly Math Mech. Feel free to look forward to that in the next couple of days. A Math Mech build based on some Duels Cup results. But also, if you're interested in going over those rating duel results with me, feel free to check out links in the description below. One of those is going to be patreon.com/hexlex. There I do exclusive full-length videos. I usually do videos that tend not to perform quite as well on the YouTube over on Patreon for folks who want to see them instead, right? So I have had people ask me lately if I go over like tournament results, that I don't really do that on the channel as much anymore. And I'll be honest, those videos really tended to not get like the amount of views that I was like super satisfied with, but we do still do that over on Patreon. So if that's something you're interested in, patreon.com/hexlex. There's many other benefits as well over there. Get your names credited in the channel, so on and so forth. We also have the coaching tier. That was the other one. Anyway, so going on back to this tier limit build here, like I said, this is based on the deck that got #1 in the Rating Duels for Season 36. There is one difference, which is here in the extra deck. I'm playing the Black Rose Dragon instead of the Deep Sea Diva Prima Donna. I do think the Prima Donna is better, but this isn't a deck that I play often enough to want to spend the UR craft points on it. This also isn't a card that comes up terribly often in Tearlaments gameplay. Literally, the function of this card is if you're in a game state, like a grind game, where you need to summon a... Not always a grind game, actually, but if you're just in a game state where your opponent has banished cards and you want to get a Rhino Heart out of the deck, and you can make a level 7 Synchro, then this card is really good. If that sounds like a lot of hoops to jump through, it is. That's why I said this card is a little bit situational. But there are a decent amount of times where this does come up. And to be fair, one of the games we're going to see, which is a 14-turn back and forth, I absolutely would have liked to have had the Deep Sea Prima Donna. But even then, you know, it's really not like so vital that I feel the need to craft it. So if you're wondering, do I need this card to play Tearlaments? It's not a requirement. It's good. I'm not going to deny that at all. And again, I did have situations where I would have liked to have seen it. But again, you always have to weigh yourself and like what you're willing to spend as far as craft points go. And like I said, I just don't play this deck so often that I want to spend more UR for it, especially when we're so close to a new pack. If a new pack had just come out and I still had like this amount of craft points left after everything I needed, then I might be more inclined, but we're coming up on a new pack pretty soon, so I want to save for that. So I'm playing Black Rose Dragon instead. There's a number of level 7 synchros that you could play. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but you could play Shooting Riser for a non-UR option. Just keep in mind that the card that you send from the deck to the graveyard cannot activate its effect that turn. So sending a Tear Fuser doesn't really do anything for you. What you want to send off of Riser is something like Snow to activate on the next turn, or one of your Shufflers to activate on the next turn. Which is like, you know, again, not really the most exciting thing in the world, which is why this card's kind of meh a little bit, but it's still fine. Dawn Dragster is another card that's another level 7 synchro you could play. It is a UR, but it's also a spell trap negate, so that's a decent option. Again, I'm on Black Rose Dragon, but even then you could also play the Moonlight Black Rose if you have one of those, is another decent option. So there are other level 7 synchro. You don't even necessarily have to play another level 7 synchro, because you can make Baron and Psychic Anti-Punisher off of Destrudo with just other monsters, right? In that regard, you could play like Appaloosa, you could play a Zeus, you could play like another maybe Super Poly target if you really wanted to. There's a number of things, but... yeah, I mean, this build is fairly standard. There's not really a whole lot exciting, I guess, in that regard, like text in the main deck going on. But as I've often said, those are the builds that are going to do the best, especially in Ranked Ladder, where consistency is valued above all. We are on the card destruction in order to catch people with the maxi and decking them out. That is an option. It doesn't come up as often with a 40 card build as it would with like a 60 card build, but it is something that you can do potentially. I like the One of Talent. I like the One of Droplet as well. Droplet's a lot better in this deck than it might look, because you might think, well, the Tearlament effects, you know, they won't trigger when they're sent off of Droplet, so is it really that good in this deck? But you often still have just a lot of spare cards on your hand, or especially your field, right? The leftover Scream, the leftover Ratesoth, you know, a spare like Fairy Tale Snow. You could put that back in the graveyard and then use it again. That's a very great functionality of Droplet plus Fairy Tale Snow. Being able to turn a monster face down, negate a monster or multiple cards, and then turn another monster face down later. That alone is probably enough to just make sure your opponent can't do anything during that turn. So, yeah, the Droplet, although it might at first glance seem like it doesn't have synergy with the Tearlament deck, actually does do quite a bit. Sending, you know, the Shufflers, Destrudo from your hand to the graveyard. Again, a lot of potential functionality there. Trivicarma, that was the other one. I knew there was one other card that worked off of that. So, yeah, it's pretty much, I think, that's pretty much all I have to say about the build. Not too much else besides those games. So let's go ahead and break this list down card by card, and then we'll get into those games. This build, we are on 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, 1 Tearlaments Havnus, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 1 Supreme Sea Mare, 2 Tearlaments Shiren, 3 Tearlaments Rhinoheart, 1 Keldo the Sacred Protector, 1 Mudora the Sword Oracle, 1 Shadal Beast, 1 Destrudo the Lost Dragon's Fission, 1 Kashtira Fenrir, 1 Kashtira, or Tearlaments Kashtira rather, 1 Card Destruction, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Reinforcement of the Army, 1 Foolish Burial Goods, 1 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Tearlaments Grief. We have 1 Pressure Planet Ratesoth, 3 Tearlaments Scream, 3 Super Polymerization, 1 Forbidden Droplet, 1 Tearlaments Heartbeat, 1 Tearlaments Meta Noise, 1 Trivicarma, 1 Tearlaments Crime, and then finally 1, excuse me, Tearlaments Soliac. And that is going to do it for our main deck. For the extra, we are on 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp, 1 El Shadal Winda, 1 Tearlaments Kitclose, 1 Garura Wings of Resonant Life, 1 Predaplant Dragos Tapelia, 1 Tearlaments Volcalos, 1 Tearlaments Kaleidoheart, 1 Black Rose Dragon, 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Psychic End Punisher, 1 Time Thief Redoer, 1 number 60 Dugars the Timeless. We got 1 Superstar Slayer Typhoon, 1 IP Masquerena, and finally 1 SP Little Knight. That is going to do it for our list. Let's check out these games. All right, I'm going to start with the shorter game first, just to show a little bit of an example of playing through Disruption. We're going to be doing a lot of that on this turn 1 here. Our opponent is on Dragon Link. Specifically, they're playing a Blue Eyes variant, which is pretty cool. Alright, so we're going to get to go first here. I'm going to lead by activating the Scream before normal summoning the Rhinoheart. Of course, this lets me chain block the Rhinoheart with the Scream, which as you can see very much matters here against Ash Blossom. This is exactly why you want to do Chainlink 1 Rhinoheart, Chainlink 2 Scream, because Ash Blossom can only be used against the effect that is latest on the Chainlink. Therefore, they cannot Ash the effect of Rhinoheart. They can only do Scream. Keep in mind, though, that if they had Valor or Imperm, they would be able to negate Rhinoheart, because those cards target a monster on the field and negate it, specifically. Whereas, again, Ash Blossom responds to the latest effect on the Chainlink. That is something that is crucial to know when it comes to playing both with and against hand traps in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Anyway, gonna mill, or not mill rather, off the Scream, but we are gonna mill off the Rhinoheart sending Havnus. However, our opponent is going to have a Bestial Magnum Hut waiting for us, so yikes, that's not ideal. We are not going to get to use the Havnus effect, and they're going to get to search. I debated using the Droplet here actually against the Magnum Hut search. That sounds a little bit weird, but it's not unreasonable to assume you might be playing against Tempai. Actually, seeing that my opponent was playing a 45 card deck was the big tip-off that they probably weren't on Tempai, and one of the main reasons why I didn't negate it. But I don't know, it still would have been a little resource heavy to maybe send off the Scream to negate here, but it's debatable. Anyway, I'm going to go for the Shiren here. Getting a draw off the Shadal Beast. Kashtira Fenrir doesn't do us too much good right now, but that's alright. We can go into the Time Thief Redoer. Also great that we get to send the Mudora off the Shiren. Now thanks to Redoer, we can activate the Shiren and fuse. I could have gone for Winda, but I want to go for Kitclose Because, one, I want to get the search here for the Soliac, that way I have more disruption on the opponent's turn. Two, if I mill another Fuser, or I guess in this case Shiren because Havness is banished, then I could still fuse into Winda potentially during my opponent's turn. As soon as they added Ringo Worm, I was like, ooh, what are they doing? Because I love Ringo Worm. That is a very, very fun card that I have not played in quite some time. Okay, there goes the Blue Eyes they mill off the Red Eyes Meteor Dragon. Again, my opponent is playing less a Blue Eyes deck and more a Blue Eyes variant of Dragon Link. Typically, you would send like Cyframe Lord Gamma here, but again, my opponent's using a Blue Eyes engine and sending that off the Red Eyes Black Meteor as well. Very cool stuff. I think that's really neat. Unfortunately for them, I did manage to mill a Shiren off of my Tearlaments Scream. This will let me fuse into Winda on their turn, as I mentioned I would do before. Also, the Scream here has very serendipitously lowered the attack of every monster my opponent controls, making it unable to battle over the Winda. But even if that were not the case, keep in mind I did still have the Forbidden Droplet. This was how I mainly planned on protecting my Winda. It was, again, a little bit of a happy accident that Scream actually lowered all of my opponent's stuff, including the Magnum HUD that was on the field before, to not be able to battle over the Winda here. And that's going to get my opponent to concede. Now, keep in mind, and it does look like I just won off the back of Winda there, and don't get me wrong, Winda was quite strong. But even without the Shaddoll Beast in the graveyard, we could have still stopped pretty much anything our opponent could have done. I just would have prioritized things in a little bit of a different order. See, what I would have done was, if the Beast was not in the graveyard and I couldn't make Winda, is I would have prioritized using Soliac first to send the excuse me, the Kikalos and mill off that. And then from there, ideally, if we hit the Fuser, we can go into Rolkalos. In that situation, if I milled Shiren off a Scream, I probably just would have gone into the Rolkalos anyway, and that would have been able to stop special summons on top of having the Soliac as an option, on top of also having the Forbidden Droplet. So I think we were good pretty much no matter what, but Winda was a very nice shortcut to the win there. Anyway, there's the shorter game. I want to show you, like I said before in the profile, a more back and forth one. Let's take a look at that. Alright, so like I alluded to in the deck profile, this duel was 14 turns, and I played against Phantom Knight Goblin Biker, or Goblin Biker Phantom Knight more aptly, but either way, I could not ask for a better deck to have such a back and forth game with. Love this deck that my opponent's on. And the deck I'm on too, I love both decks, but I like Phantom Knight a little more. Anyway, I'm going to go for the Foolish Burial. Opponent's going to Ash Blossom that. Not ideal. What I was going to do was Foolish the Tier Cash, mill a couple of cards, and then Grief send a Fuser and go into Kikalos if I didn't mill anything. Here, I have to kind of just use the Grief to go into the Tier Cash, not mill anything, set Super Poly and pass. To be fair, Super Poly Maxi Keldo in hand isn't a horrible place to be, but yeah, as you can see, my opponent didn't really have too many plays in their hand either. They're going to Sploder, set a couple, and then pass. From here, after top decking Soliac, I'll just set the Keldo, since it can block the Sploder successfully. Alright, now they have plays, going for the Phantom Knight of Torn Scales. Not going to go for Max C just yet. I want to see what kind of an Xyz line they're going to commit into. Going to the Goblin Biker is kind of what I thought and hoped they would do, as it means I can then Max C off of the Doug Charger. Also, with my hand dead like this, and I've talked about this before, you really want to use Max C in a situation where you're able to guarantee a draw off of it if you need to get the draw off of it, right? Okay, now here I could have Super Poly'd the Keldo and the Doug Charger, and in hindsight, I actually wish I really would have done that. More than anything else, just to get the Trivikarma in the graveyard. My thought process was, well, okay, I can Super Poly later when they have a bunch of like dark stuff with like Phantom Knights, right? Then I can go for either Mud Dragon or Garura. But my opponent's actually not going to further their plays here. So I guess on one hand, I didn't really need to use Super Poly to keep myself alive like I thought I might. But now I kind of wish I would have used it sooner again to get this Trivikarma in the yard. Especially as I'm top decking an Ash Blossom, which is still not plays at this point. Alright, they're going for the Grand Entrance here to add another Doug Charger. That's the thing about Goblin Bikers, they actually play very, very well into Super Poly, since they're all different types and attributes. Garura and Mud Dragon cannot be made off of like pretty much any two Goblin Biker monsters. Not even two of the same one, because I've both Garura and Mudragon, right? Say that you can't use monsters with the same name? Pretty sure that's right. That would make sense. Same name. Oh, but different types, so that's an inherent thing about Mudragon, right? Of course. Alright, but here when they have the Break Sword and Silent Boost is now when I can finally use the Super Poly. At this point, I'm definitely going to want to fire that off as soon as possible here. Get that Trivikarma in the yard. And the Garura can block these attacks here, which is pretty nice. I'm going to use the Keldo as they're trying to bring back the Torn Scales, while also putting back some good top decks for myself, the Grief and the Reinforcement of the Army. It's a bit debatable how good that actually was to do, but I don't know. When I'm in a top decking situation, even if it's only by a couple of percentage points, I would ideally like to make that more likely to happen. A good top deck, that is. I'm going to use my Ash Blossom on the Xyz Armor Fortress. I really don't want them to get the trap card and have some more disruption going into my turn. Normal Summon Terratop, especially in the Talkathon board, but going for an SP Little Knight rather than a rank 3. Looks like they're going to now overlay the Fortress just into the Dark Knight Lancer, because they can't get the trap card anyway. Also, 4 face down cards is really scary. Drawing a Rhino Heart. Thankfully, we have plays on the next turn. Finally. The face down Soliak is really nice too. I want a Trivikarma before I draw to increase my odds of getting another good top deck here. And we do get a fantastic top deck. I love this Rates Off, because like, this Fenrir can bait out so much, and yeah, it's going to bait out the Fogblade here, which I'm very, very thankful for. They have another Fogblade, which I predicted was probably going to happen, but I'm going to chain the Soliak here, try to negate the SP. I knew they would chain SP, but this also forces the SP Little Knight here. Plus, I think pretty much no matter what I targeted, they would SP and banish it and itself and the card I targeted anyway, right? So, alright. Now we just have those 2 face-down cards to worry about here. So, we're going to Grief send Havnus. Havnus F fuse with the Tier Cache in the graveyard. That way I can keep as many bodies on board as possible to make plays with before going into the Kiklos. But it did have an Imperm, which I was not expecting this at all. I thought it was going to be the 3rd Fogblade. I do like my opponent's deck. I will make one very, very minor criticism of it, that I don't think you should be playing Imperm, specifically because the Shade Brigandine needs you to not have a trap card in the graveyard to activate. So if you go second and you Imperm your opponent's stuff to stop their plays, you might not be able to do a full Phantom Knights combo if you need to rely on Shade Brigandine. That said, I don't think Imperm is like the worst card you could play in Phantom Knight, but I wasn't expecting it here. I was expecting the 3rd Fogblade before an Imperm here, but I guess either way, we're going to get negated. So here I attempted to go for a Typhone, only to realize, oh wait, my field spell is going to buff it above 3k attack, which means I can't activate the Typhone effect. And that combined with their use of the Phantom Knight's Wing to give their full armor Dark Knight 500 more attack is going to mean that I can't battle over it. So, in a little bit of a jam here, a little bit of one. I'm going to try to Soliak send Kiklos in response to this Harpy's Feather Duster. They're going to use SP Little Knight to banish my Kiklos. But the Soliak being destroyed does mean I get to search. So I'm going to add Havnus here as another form of disruption, hopefully, potentially. My opponent activates an on-field effect, then I can maybe mill into something here, but kind of have to play your outs a lot in Tearlaments. And what that means is the best play to make a lot of the time is the one that's going to, like, you have to kind of assume things are going to go well. Although one thing I did forget about here, until the battle phase happened, is the fact that my Rhino Heart is actually keeping me safe thanks to the Fogblade. Fogblade says the monster's effect is negated and that it cannot attack. However, monsters cannot target that face-up monster for attacks, meaning as long as my negated Rhino Heart is on the field, I'm actually safe from my opponent's board. Whew, very much a relief here, as I would have lost otherwise. My opponent putting their Xyz Armor Fortress back into the extra deck will allow me to proc the Havnus. I didn't mill anything useful there, but I also did get a couple of bad top decks out of there. I would have liked that Supreme Sea Mirror that we milled, but Mudora and Ash Blossom can definitely go away here. Okay, they're going to use the Fortress to add the Armored Xyz. That's fine. And then the Little Knight puts back my Kit Colossus. Alright, top decking a Shiren here. So before anything else, I'm going to move to battle phase, because I can battle over the Cicada King and the Little Knight, and those are also my biggest obstacles to making plays here. I do decide to get rid of the Rhino Heart, even though it does mean that I can be attacked, mostly so that I can use Kit Colossus to bring back said Rhino Heart, and also mill a bunch of cards. That way I can guarantee a fusion effect here. Kit Colossus mill 5, mill a ton of tier cards, finally, after milling some not great, getting some not great mills, rather, earlier in the game. Alright, so Chainlink 1 Rhino Heart, Chainlink 2 Tier Cash, Chainlink 3 Scream, Chainlink 4 Meta Noise. Yeah, that sounds right, yep. We can add back the Havness to potentially use for more disruption later. Scream's going to add Crime, our last trap card. We can use Tier Cash to mill some more. There's Shaddoll Beast for another draw and potential window access. Sending the Havness to get back Rhino Heart. Havness affects procs. Shaddoll Beast also lets us draw a card here. Beast will draw into a Maxi, which I'm honestly probably going to just use with the Shiren here, right? Yeah, because then I can go into Redoer. Yep. Alright, Kaleidoheart gets to put back the rank 7. Now I can Shiren. I think it's worth pitching the Maxi 100% here to go into Redoer. That alone is worth it, but the fact that we also milled Fairy Tail Snow there is extra worth it. Alright, from there we can Redoer effect, detach Shiren off its effect, and then of course that lets us fuse into the Roll Colossus. Now, I don't have a monster on hand for Crime anymore, but I think it was worth it to set up the board that we did. So, I mean, that just goes to show. When I say all I was waiting for was one Rhino Heart, I mean that all I needed to pull off plays there was a single Rhino Heart. And we even managed to answer a lot of our opponent's board in the process. We didn't win that turn. That would have been ideal, but... looks like they're going to battle over the Snow, or the Little Knight. Then I'm going to Snow. Now, you might be wondering, Hex, why are you protecting the Redoer and not the Fairy Tail Snow? Well, here's the thing. If I were to use Snow on the Phantom Knight's Breaksword, they would just attack Xyz Armor Fortress into SP Little Knight, which would be more battle damage. But more importantly, I want to turn specifically the Xyz Armor Fortress face down, because you'll remember last turn, I put the rank 7 back in their extra deck, and I really don't want them to just slap the rank 7 on top of the rank 5. So this is a bit of a 2-for-1 on the Fairy Tail Snow effect. Not only am I stopping one of the attacks with Snow, which I would do anyway, also again, doing it in this order means I take less battle damage, which with me being as low as I am, actually does matter here, but again, they can now no longer go into the rank 7. So that's why I used Snow when I did. They're going to go into their own Typhone, which is a little bit annoying for the bounce effect, but I can just battle over it, so I'm not really worried about it in that regard. Yeah, it's annoying to have my Kaleidoheart get put back here, but worse things could have happened. Alright, so I'm going to Redoer effect, lets me take, what is it, Nib? Yeah. Here they're going to bring back Breaksword. I have to imagine that was trying to get me to use my Mudora there, because them bringing back Breaksword does not matter at all. They don't have any Phantom Knights cards. Now I'm going to use my Destrudo here, and then actually link with Fairy Tail Snow into IP Masquerade. I maybe should have just made Black Rose Dragon for the body, even if I wasn't going to use the effect. That would have been better than IP's body. Yeah, I definitely should have done it that way. But the main thing that I wanted here was to get my Fairy Tail Snow back into the graveyard. That way I could use it as disruption again during my opponent's turn. Also, you'll notice that I'm chaining Time Thief Redoer to my opponent's Goblin Biker effects because they need to detach in order to special summon themselves. So, by getting rid of the Time Thief Redoer material, they can no longer bring those cards back. Here they're going to Raigeki, so it didn't really end up mattering whether I made IP or Black Rose, but making Black Rose and not activating I think would have been better. I can bring back Roll Close by its effect. They're going to summon Torn Scales, activate the effect to pitch the Ancient Cloak. I'm going to let this all go through. Yeah, they can even add the Silent Boots, and then at this point I can use Fairy Tail Snow to turn the Torn Scales face down before they get a chance to special summon the Silent Boots. Now keep in mind I can do that because I had my toggle set to on, which means I had priority passed to me every time I could play a card. So Opponent using the Fog Blade on the Rokolos here, which makes sense. Redoer is going to take a... what was that? I almost said Fog Blade, but it's Ragged Gloves. Because I was like, Fog Blade? No, that was the card that just got activated. Again, we're cheating Redoer to the Goblin Biker effect, so they can't come back. I'm just going to battle over the Torn Scales here, and then just kind of pass back to my opponent. So, not ideal. I would have liked my Fairy Tale Snow to be in the graveyard, but can't exactly link it off. I don't have any more link monsters to go into. Once again, we're using the Redoer effect, but this time I think... Hang on. Yeah, so this time you'll notice I took a trap card, the Full Armored Xyz. So rather than just simply banishing my Redoer, I get to actually activate the effect of place a face-up card your opponent controls on top of their deck. I can place the Fog Blade that's currently negating my Rokolos on top of the deck, thus freeing my Rokolos and letting her use the effect. This will also still prevent the Goblin Biker from coming back because they still need to detach an Xyz material, of which my Time Thief Redoer no longer has. Now they can use the Ragged Gloves here to send the Fog Blade that I just put back and then potentially get some plays off there. I'm going to have to use both my Mudora and my Rokolos here, and the reason I have to use both is because they can use the other Fog Blade effect, or the Fog Blade effect in general, rather, as a Spell Speed 2 effect. But we know one of the cards in hand is Silent Boots, and two other cards that haven't been alive up to this point, so I'm really hoping that's enough. There's Dangerous Sukanoko. It's going to get to special summon itself. They do still have a normal summon. They're going to go for the Silent Boots and then concede as they no longer have anything to make. I should have hovered over my opponent's extra deck. I think they had 5 cards left, one of which was the rank 7 Xyz armor card that we put back. So only 4 cards remaining. I have to imagine some amount of those were like the Arc Rebellion OTK. Maybe 2 slots for Raider Sign Arc Rebellion, so it doesn't look like they had anything else left. Oh, that was a very, very good game. That was a very, very good duel. I normally don't do only 2 games per video, but with how long that game was, and we're almost up to half an hour already, I think I'm going to go ahead and finish off right here. So I hope you enjoyed watching that game as much as I enjoyed playing it. Huge shout out to my opponent. That was a great game. GG's for sure. But that'll do it for this one. For now, let's just go ahead and move on to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download that for free, and if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's, again, free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out. But more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.